Hello and welcome to On Walking the Way. We often consider ourselves to be the first link in the domino chain, but other times we consider ourselves to be the last in that chain. But the truth is more complicated than that because we're all part of a very long chain that we did not create. So you're probably wondering what brought this random analogy to mind today. Well, it all started for me when I came home from a meeting where I sat next to the pastor who commissioned me into ministry 35 years ago. And as I thought about him and his impact on me, I thought about his father, who prayed for me 10 years before that as I returned to faith in Jesus. Now his father has long passed, and he's 90, and I'm 66 and a great-grandfather. Everything we are and everything we do is built on a chain of choices that reach back before time. We are all standing on the shoulders and prayers of those who have gone before us. We're not the first in the chain. To illustrate, I am reminded of a testimony I heard from a missionary team returning from a closed country. They were young and excited, and for good reason. They had seen some remarkable answers to prayer on their trip, but this is what made me smile as they reported. They completely failed to recognize the uncountable number of prayers and all the nameless people who have sacrificed for the people that they reached, long before they ever had the idea to go, long before they ever prayed their first prayer. They felt they were the first in the chain, the first to go and the first to pray. So obviously, it was their prayer alone that God was answering. Now this kind of mistake is the mistake that excitement brings. It's understandable, even heartwarming, and not very serious, unless you never learn to appreciate your place in the body. And I don't mean the body as it currently exists on earth, but the whole body that has been sacrificing and praying from the origin of the church. This realization that we're just one small domino in a very long chain is both humbling and comforting at the same time. We're not alone. We're covered by the combined prayers of the church from the beginning, and we're covered by the prayers of Jesus before the church as we know it was even founded. So we're not the first in the chain, but we're not the last either. I think every generation of Christians from the first until now has thought that they were the last generation before the return of Christ. In my lifetime, I've seen many false claims that Jesus is coming back. The funny thing about this misconception is that it is almost, but not quite, the right frame of mind. We should all be living as if Jesus might return at any moment. The mistake is trying to pin that down to a day or a year. The most serious danger with living as if there's no tomorrow is this. If Jesus does not actually return today, you risk breaking the chain for the next generation. We need to hope Jesus returns today and live like he won't return for 1,000 years. There is an apocryphal story about Luther that became a trope for preachers in the middle of the 20th century. But it's a good story regardless of whether it's an exact quote of Luther or not. The story is about someone who supposedly asked Martin Luther what he would do if he knew Jesus was coming today. And according to the story, he said, "I'd plant a tree." The idea with this story is that our hope for the return of Jesus should always motivate us. But it should not motivate us to give up our calling and sit around waiting for Jesus. It should motivate us to work all the more until he arrives because time is precious, at least for us mortals. The fact that we don't know how much time we have should motivate us not to waste it. But there is a better perspective. In Hebrews 12, we have this reminder of how to think about those who have gone before us, and how to think about this present age and the hope of the age to come. It comes to us from Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin that clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Now, with this in mind, we need to live not as the first domino or the last, but as one domino in a long chain that began with God and goes on to eternity. That does not make us less important in the chain, because every domino's job is to set the next domino in motion. Our hope of the coming age should motivate us not to sit back and wait, but rather to use whatever time we have to continue on the path that Jesus has laid out before us, because we have no idea how much time we have. So this week, let's look up and realize that the powers of this world do not have the last say, nor do they have the power of eternity behind them or before them. Let's look up and remember that Jesus is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords now, and we are his hands and feet until the next age dawns, and then on to eternity. Let's encourage each other in this hope today, and have a great week.